What's up, y'all? Welcome to the live stream. Woo! Just opening my latest, what do they call it? Payoff for shilling. This is how you get a good review from Joshua Bardwell. Let me tell you what it takes. Is it money? No. Is it illicit substances and women of ill repute? No. I'm not interested in any of that. It's neck straps. The Beta FPV Aquila 2.0 FPV kit is the best 2.0 FPV kit I've ever seen. Why? If you're looking for a 2.0 FPV kit, the Beta FPV Aquila FPV kit 2.0 is the one to get. Alrighty. Yeah, let's just... Oh. What doesn't even fit on my head? This is the worst drone I've ever seen. It's terrible. No one should buy it. Because that's how YouTubing works, right? You get free stuff from vendors, and then you say it's amazing, because that's what you're in it for. You're in it for free stuff. You're in it for free stuff. That's what you're in it for. Oh, free batteries. Yeah. Yeah, that's... I can definitely pay the bills with that. Hey, Fabio. Fabio, instead of money this month for editing my videos, I'm going to be giving you some lava batteries. No, you don't want those. Oh, okay. Just thought I would do a little one-man play about how people think YouTube reviews work. You get free shit that you don't really want. Sometimes it's terrible. You do a lot of work making a review of the stuff. You post the review. You try to hopefully be useful, helpful, and then people accuse you of shilling. The circle goes round and round. No, some people are always going to. Am I a streamer yet, Mom? Am I a streamer? I kind of like that. Yeah. Oh, that's a good look for me. I'm like a druid. The FPV druid. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Assassin's Creed. I'm the Robin Hood of FPV. I had a person reach out to me and say, I want you to make a video. We want to make a video. And we want a video about, so one of our competitors makes a product. They made that product for a long time. They didn't innovate. We made a product that competes with them. And as soon as we released that product, they updated their product. And the undertone of this was, and their product is, our product deserves more recognition because we innovated. And now, because their first product was already super popular, their updated version of the product is beating our product, even though our product deserves the acclaim because we were the ones who prompted the update. Do you follow me? I'm trying not to name names so it gets a little confusing. And they said, I wonder if you want to make a video about how innovation happens and stagnation happens in the world of FPV. And how it's bad for the FPV community and for the individual hobbyists when one company becomes so dominant that they stagnate and there's no one, and that the little upstart innovators who do things different, maybe they don't have the most popular products, but they deserve recognition for even if all they do is kick the big guys in the butt and make them move. And I was like, that's an interesting, and he said, we even might have some marketing budget, you know, for this video. So the implication was, you make a video telling everybody how great we are and how we deserve recognition for the things we do. And, you know, kind of like, not kind of like subtly, maybe a little bit shitting on the competition for not being more innovative. And we'll pay you a little bit of money. And I said, first of all, I'm just not super interested in making that video. That could be an interesting video to make. I'm just not in the mood to make that video right now. But even if I was in the mood to make that video, the fact that you brought it to me and you kind of wrote it for me, and then you offered to pay me to put words in my mouth, at that point, it's basically I'm just doing an ad read for you, except instead of me saying, vendor A is good, they paid me to say they're good, and then cashing my paycheck, I'm kind of doing like a sneaky ad read without like, oh, look at this documentary about FPV and innovation. And just by coincidence, I'm going to say that vendor A is good and vendor B was stagnating and didn't innovate. And I was like, so I'm not going to do that. I was like, nah, not interested. And if you're curious about how like bias happens in YouTube, like, obviously, sometimes people just get paid to say things, like, but oftentimes that's not happening at the level that FPV is at. If you're like Jake Paul, and I'm just throwing a name out, I'm not specifically accusing Jake Paul of anything. I mean, if I were to accuse him of something, he probably would have done it because he seems like a pretty skeezy person, but that's just my opinion. That's not legally slander or whatever, libel, defamation. But it's like if Jake Paul does an ad for like a crypto coin, which I think he did, or an NFT app, well, he's probably just getting paid to say it and trying to cash out. But that's when people are much bigger than the world of FPV. Like even if you get up to the people with 2 to 10 million subs, like the Potato Jets of the world, the people doing videos about DJI and Sony cameras, like there could be some money there. I'm not saying there is, but they're like, but at the world of FPV, you know, when like Flywoo or Beta FPV has a new drone, I don't know, they don't offer to pay me. Maybe they just think I'll say no because I'm so scrupulous. I don't know. I'm going to guess they're not just like paying cash for reviews. And just getting free product is nice because you do get content. I definitely remember when I was so happy to get content and not have to pay for it. I mean, get product and not have to pay for it because it meant I had anything to make content about. So like the smallest, I guess what I'm getting at is the smallest YouTubers in a few thousand viewers to let's say 10 to 20,000 viewers or less, somewhere around that. Those guys are so hungry for content and don't have any money usually, unless they're independently wealthy. They maybe would be in a position where they would like take product and want to say nice things about the product. And then at the higher end, you're making so much. Once you get past a certain point, you're making enough money from your channel. You kind of don't give a shit about the free product. Like either you're just getting offered whatever product you want and all you have to do is ask for it and say you'll do a review. And then if they're like, well, we want to see that, you're like, no, F you. And then if they don't give it to you, you just buy it. Because like if you make $2,000, $3,000 a month in ad revenue, you could probably afford to spend $500 on a drone or something. I don't know. So, just been thinking about bias in the YouTube space lately. You don't have a feed from OBS. Because I didn't start the virtual camera, Blunty. Sorry about that, bud. Sorry. You should be good now. Anyway. Q! You guys putting in the chat, everyone you think is a shill. No, don't do that. I don't like being called a shill. I'm sure nobody else does. You can people think I'm a shill. You could think somebody else is a shill. Keep it to yourself. Watch their content. Don't watch their content. There's no point in going in the YouTube chat and saying somebody is or isn't a shill. Anyway. I don't think there are many YouTubers that give their honest opinions, says Kilo Foxtrot. What are they giving then? What do you think they're doing? I mean, I do think they're giving their honest opinions. I just think some of them don't have very interesting insights. I think when, and I'm not going to name names because I'm not trying to pick fights, but I think when Joe YouTuber gets up and says, "This is the best drone ever," I almost did an accent there just because when I do a character, I do an accent. And then the accent that would have come out would have made it seem like I was pointing the finger at somebody. I'm glad I saved that. I think that when Joe YouTuber gets up and says, "This is the best drone, I really like it," I think he's probably being sincere. He just isn't very insightful. I think he means it. You know? Anyway. Yeah. I think that when they don't give any negatives, it's just because they're bad at their job, but not because they are bought off. I just think they grab the product and they're like, "I love it. I freaking love it." And then they just, they don't really, they're not, you know, anyway. Yep. I admit it. I almost did a kind of bad Australian accent because that's my go-to accent. And I just want to explicitly say I in no way was intending to point a finger at any Australian or New Zealand people. That's just the accent that comes out of my mouth when I just roll the dice and pick a random accent. So, anyway, I love everybody. Watch what you want to watch. Don't watch what you don't want to watch. And you know, get on with your life. Alrighty, let's do some questions. Ricardo Benders asks, "Why can I only pay monthly on Patreon? I'd rather pay yearly. Can you make that available?" No, I decided not to make that available. I don't remember why. When you turn on yearly subscriptions, there is a thing that happens, and once you turn on yearly subscriptions on Patreon, you cannot turn them off. You have to leave them on forever. And I remember when yearly subscriptions first came out, they said, "Hey, do you want to turn on yearly subscriptions?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe." Oh, no. There was something about them that made me say, "No, I don't want to do that." I don't remember what it was, but no, I decided a long time ago not to turn those on. And I don't remember why. Annual memberships creator overview. Subscription billing, renew, promotions. How do I manage annual members, reviewing annual members? I don't remember. What if I change my tiers or content? I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. But there was a reason why I didn't want to do it. So be it. What are the main things to pay attention to when trying to get the cleanest analog feed? This is a tricky one. A good analog feed is a whole bunch of small things adding up. When you see somebody like Mr. Steele and his analog feed looks amazing all the time, and you're like, how does he do it? he's done a lot of little things right for a long time, to the point where they're all second nature. So start with, I think the first place to start, I think a good video transmitter is not the first place to start. Obviously, it's on the list. I think the first place to start is a good quality antenna on the drone. Now, that doesn't have to mean an expensive antenna. Some of the little whip antennas are good quality, but a good quality antenna on the drone. A good receiver in the goggles. So for me, a good receiver would be something like the TBS Fusion is one of the best. The HDZero receiver is very, very good. A bad receiver in the goggles will give you bad range, although you can get surprisingly good signal out of some cheap goggles. I've heard people say that they've got the EV800D goggles, the old $100 Eachine goggles that everybody's first FPV goggle. And with a good set of antennas, they get really good coverage compared to some more expensive goggles. So good quality antennas. On the goggles, I suppose the goggles should be first and then the drone. It doesn't have to mean a high gain antenna. The nice thing about the goggles is you can spend $40 or $60 on a good antenna for the goggles, and it applies to all the drones that you fly, including drones that aren't yours. You could be spectating. Or you could get, you have to put a good quality antenna on all your drones. Good antenna, goggles, good antenna on the drone. Good receiver module, like TBS Fusion is my go-to these days. Immersion RC Rapid Fire, just as good, more expensive. SpeedyBee goggle module, supposedly pretty good, but I'm not sure. I haven't tested it. And Skyview module, decent, but not as good as Fusion, not as good as HDZero goggles. And then, okay, so then we've got the video transmitter, which in my humble opinion is less important. Like, I know a good, clean video transmitter. At the end of the day, the video transmitter isn't doing very much complicated. It's just broadcasting the signal. You can get a video transmitter that puts out more power, but the idea that like some video transmitters put out a cleaner signal than others, they're all using the same hardware to a large degree. The power amplifier, it may be a little bit of custom design depending on the VTX, but I think most video transmitters, what you're mostly concerned about is the output power, and as long as it's outputting the power it says it is, I think you're basically, some of them might, like the frequency might shift a little bit, but those are probably pretty bad, and I'm willing to bet that most of them are about as good as any others. You could spend a little extra money on a good quality video transmitter if you just want to be sure. But a video transmitter that's putting out the power it says it's putting out, and more power obviously is better most of the time. And then your location relative to the drone is key. I've seen people flying, they're flying around a bando and they're like, how does he have good range? And I'm like, he found the one place to stand where he has coverage everywhere he needs to be. So you will learn as you fly more and more to intuitively understand that if I stand here and I point my antenna that way, then I can fly here, but not there. But if I move over here, now I can see. And you sort of get this, I can see the matrix understanding of how RF signal propagates through a place. All right. So those are the main things. What did I miss, chat? What did I miss? Anything I missed? I think those are the main things. Raising your altitudes, being higher up. Standing versus sitting or kneeling, big difference.
Somebody in chat asked, is there any difference, and you may mention this, but is there any difference between powering via your FC or
yeah,
where to power? Doesn't matter where you put the ground, and then also piping through the FC to get LSD, can that introduce issues? sort
Well,
of thing.
you kind of have to do that because you want OSD. The power source can matter in how clean the video feed is. If you're picking up electrical interference from inside the drone, then that will make your feed dirtier, noisier, whatever. You can learn to distinguish between breakup that's caused in the air and breakup that's caused in the drone. The cleanest power to the video transmitter is going to depend. On some drones, you'll get cleaner video by running off of battery voltage because you bypass the voltage regulator on the flight controller, and therefore you're saying, just give me the raw voltage, and the video transmitter has enough filtering to handle it. Whereas on some builds, you will get better video by running off a voltage regulator on the flight controller because the voltage regulator steps down the battery voltage and acts as a filter. I'd say that more of the time, you'll get cleaner video running off a voltage regulator than running off of VBAT, but it depends on the drone. Having a good capacitor on your build, if you don't have a capacitor, on everything from a 3-inch up and up, you want a separate capacitor. For a 5-inch drone, something like 1,000 microfarads, so 470 to 1,000 microfarads, 35 to 50 volts, depending on how big of a capacitor you can fit in the build. For 3-inch, something like a 220 to 470, again, depending on what you can fit in the build. And take the voltage. If you've got like a 3S and you're going up to 12 volts, you'd want maybe a 17-volt capacitor, just to get a little headroom, 17 to 25 roughly. You don't need to go more than double the voltage. So if your battery voltage is 12 volts, you wouldn't need to go higher than a 25-volt capacitor, but you can go like a little bit lower. If you're 4S, that's going to be probably a 25 to 36-volt capacitor for about 18 volts, something like that, 17 volts. So capacitor, and then clean power to the to the video transmitter. But what is going to give you the cleanest power will depend on the build of your flight controller. I would start by running it off a regulator, but if I didn't get clean video that way, I would try moving it to battery voltage. Sometimes that will be better. All right. We got a super chat here from Uzei. Thank you for $5. Uzei. I traded my first child for the DJI Goggles 3, and now my wife left me. How do I bind the G3 with my O4 Pro? You should figure out how to bind your wife and your child back to yourself. I assume the question's a joke. You press the bind button on one, you press the bind button on the other. They'll bind. Any recommendations? Skydar FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. What are your recommendations for the best high-quality Rolex-style alternatives or replicas? Oh, I see. This is a watch-related question. Well, it is a super chat, so I guess I have to. So right now, the Thorn TO23 is an excellent vintage Rolex homage. The Thorn TO23. An excellent, it's like clearly an homage. Really good build quality. Very nice looking. It is a vintage. I think it's based more off of the 5-number Rolex serials. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it's old enough to be the 4-number Rolex serials with the 5s. Not the serials, the model numbers, the references. Yeah. So you got, where's the brown? The brown is like the really nice one in my humble opinion. The brown looks really nice. There you go. That's very nice. Textured brown dial, gray bezel. Very, very nice. Quality. $200. PT5000 movement. The only gotcha with the PT5000 movement is sometimes the PT5000 movement self-destructs if you use the crown to wind it. Now, there are people who say that's not as common as all that. They're like, no, it's a very good movement. It's very easy to regulate accurately. and you get a few outliers that make a big stink, and mostly it's fine. So there are people who say that if you have the PT5000 movement, you should avoid winding the crown as much as possible and just shake it to move the rotor to get it spinning. So if you're looking for a Chinese homage, there you go. Obviously, there's a million like Swiss watches out there that are in the style of a Rolex. I'm guessing that's not what you're asking for. And then if you're looking for a rep, which I don't recommend because that's illegal. First thing I would have you do is go to Rep Time on Reddit and lurk for a couple weeks and learn how not to make mistakes, because it's a wild world out there and you will waste your money buying something and not get what you meant to get. But if you're looking for a rep, the black ceramic Rolex from VSF is like one of the best reps you can buy today. Like seriously one of the best reps you can buy today. There it is with the date window, and there's one without the date window. Hang on, that's RCF. See, that's not the one you want. You want VSF. That's RCF. See how it says RCF? That's RC factory. You want, that's QF. That's Q factory. You don't, I mean, those are probably fine, but we want VSF. VS factory is the best. There we go. Black ceramic VSF. That's the one. That's the one to get these days. It's going to take you 3 months before they even have it in hand because VSF is so backed up. There's a non-date version too if you want it. I'm not finding it, but it's in the list. QF, Q factories. There's all these different factories that make the watches. RC factory and VSF. That's the one. This is supposedly one of the best reps made today. So a beautiful, beautiful rep. If you're a horrible person who would spend your money on a counterfeit product, which is illegal and unethical, and no one should do it. But the black ceramic VSF Submariner is very, very good. All right, thank you for your super chat. Definitely do not just go to that website and spend money. See, you didn't know about the 3 different factories, did you? You didn't know the difference between a QF, a VSF, and an RCF, right? Which is the best? You don't know. You got to go to Rep Time, and you got to spend some time lurking and learn about, the different reps and who to buy from. And definitely do not just go do a web search, because you will get some page that takes your money and sends you a $20 shitter. Okay, you have to go through the reputable dealers. Okay. Anyway, you should do this though, because this is an homage, but it's not an actual ripoff. All right, thank you for your super chat. Oh. I know a thing or two about rep watches. Thank you for 120 Norwegian kroner. I have a QAVR 13 Pro 12S using 6S 4500 milliamp hour lipos. I want to go long range with it, carrying the Red 5 Raptor. QAVRR 13 Pro 12S. What the hell is it? RR QAV Pro 13 12S. It's a Cinelifter. I see. Oh, this guy. Okay. It reminds like, okay. What batteries should I go for? Oof. Oh, you're running 4500 12S now, right? So you need 12S. I mean, you would go for a bigger 12S. I'm hesitant to just like name a battery, because I don't, this is not like a quadcopter that I have a lot of experience with. So like, what size battery will mount on it, right? What's going to be the right choice there? If you're currently using a 4500, I'll tell you one thing you can probably do. There's a simple way to approximately double the flight time of almost any drone. And that is, you buy an Upgrade Energy Gold battery. Now, these are Amprius silicone anode cells. If you don't know what silicone anode is, go look up on YouTube or something, silicone anode lithium batteries. It's basically a new chemistry of lithium battery that approximately triples the energy density. So if it triples the energy density, why does it only double the flight time? Well, because not everything is perfect. And mostly you triple the energy density, you double the battery weight, you end up roughly with double the flight. I don't know. But it's my experience flying them is you roughly double your flight time. Now there is a limitation, which is, first of all, that is a green. That's not a gold. So here is a gold 6S 11.1 amp hour. Okay. So that is almost triple the amp hours of what you're currently running. So you're going to buy 2 of these. You're going to wire them up in a 12S configuration. You're going to spend $1,500 because these cells are expensive as shit. And you're going to roughly double your flight time. Bada bing, bada boom. But you have to be careful because these batteries have a very low discharge current. Now, the good news is that the C rating is very low, but the milliamp hours is very high. So you get a decent discharge current, but like 30 amps. This is what this is rated for. Now, I'll bet your drone is pulling more than 30 amps. Oops, this isn't going to work for you. You could go 12S 2P, and now you spent $3,000 on the batteries, and you've got 60 amps of discharge. So, like, but for people with more money than sense, here's a 6S 3P. 6S 3P, 33 amp hours, $2,300. So that's going to get you 90 amps of discharge current, right? Yes. So there you go. Spend $2,300 on a 6S 3P. You're going to go from 45 milliamp hours to 33 milliamp hours. You think you'll get a longer flight time? Yes, you will. A lot longer. And the beauty is, what does that weigh? Oh, you're going to need 2 of them. I'm sorry. You need 2 of them because you're running 12S. So $5,000. You need a lot longer flight time, though. Surely they've got a 6S 2P. Here we go. There you go. 6S 2P. Perfect. $2,400, 22 amp hours. That's the one to get. But only 60 amps. Can you get under 60 amps? We'll see. Like, probably what you would really do is just double the size of your battery by adding more parallel. So instead of 12S 1P, you would do 12S 2P. You would have 4 6S 4500 batteries, wire up a Y adapter to put them in parallel, and see, like, what that does. The reality is that an octo, a coaxial octo is not ideal for longer range and endurance. It's more ideal for power in a small footprint. You're on 13-inch props. If you were to adjust that build so it was running 15 or 16 or 18-inch props, you would significantly increase your flight time. You might not even need to change your motors. Just do a motor output limit to effectively reduce the motor RPM. And you would get significantly longer flight time, as long as you don't smoke a motor because you're running too big of a prop. So, like, I've seen people with a 13-inch build. They just put longer arms on it because the arms are just carbon tubing. They just bought some carbon tubing and they cut it to length in their shop. And they took a 13-inch build up to an 18-inch build, same motors. The motors were a little oversized to begin with, so then they went to 18-inch props and the motors were okay still. Just reduce the motor output limit to bring the RPM down a little bit and double the batteries, and then they, double or triple their flight time. Okay. All right. Cool. I have an old Lumineer QAVS JB OG edition. I can't seem to source the top frame mount, and I can't redraw and cut it for all-in. And I can redraw and cut it on our CNC machine. Yeah, do it. So first of all, I just showed you guys a website where you can buy counterfeit Rolex watches. So, like, if I were to then go, no, don't scan and cut my precious carbon fiber plate from my QAVS frame. No, I don't really have a leg to stand on there, do I? But also, no one makes that part. You literally cannot buy. I don't think you can buy that part. The QAVS V1 is out of production. So, like, at that point, just do what you got to do. That's an interesting idea. Rav FPV says go to 15-inch props and run 8S instead of 12S. That way your motor KV stays about the same. That's clever. That's clever. Of course, he's already got a bunch of 6S batteries, so maybe he should go to 20-inch props and run 6S. Haha. No. Yeah. Hey, I'm a beginner. Hi, Easoil. Help, please. Yeah, that's what beginners usually say to me. I ordered DJI FPV3 remote. Not sure what's next. I want a Tiny Whoop digital. Is the 04 air unit compatible with my remote? Hey, Easoil, why did you buy it if you didn't know what it would be compatible with? I'm not trying to, like, make you feel dumb, but I want you to, okay, I want you to feel just a tiny bit dumb right now. Just a little bit. Don't, like, beat yourself. Don't, like, go, cry in the shower and kick yourself all night because but just feel you're going to waste so much money in this hobby if you just buy things randomly without knowing whether they're compatible. I'm trying to help you not waste your money. Now, maybe there's more to the story about why you bought it. And the story makes sense. In that case, don't feel dumb at all. But yes, the RC3 is compatible with the 04 air unit. So you're going to want a micro drone like the Flywoo 1.8 with the DJI 04 Lite. Let's just go to Flywoo's website. Firefly 1.6. Oh, is it the 1.6? Oh, I like the 2.0 better. I like the 2.0 better anyway. Fine. DJI Vista? No. Okay. How about 04 Lite? $2S Nano Baby Walksnail Avatar. Come on. Why is the search failing me so badly? Why am I failing so badly? Microdrone. Yeah, like not the Fly Times 85. HDZero, Walksnail, DJI Vista, Walksnail, HDZero. Hello? What kind of world is it where I can't buy a drone with the DJI in it? It's not even showing up as existing. Tiny drone? There you go. Firefly 1.8, Nano Baby 04 wide. That's a solid one. And then, like, go there and there. The Flylens 85, that's the one I'm looking for. What are you talking about? The Flylens doesn't exist. Yes, it does. There we go. Flylens 85, brushless whoop, HD. The Flylens 85, you could get the 04 Pro. It flies okay with the 04 Pro. It flies better with the 04 Lite. 8503, 85 HDZero, 8503, 04 Pro, 04 Wide. There we go. This is probably the one I would actually recommend to you if I was guessing which one you would like the best. The Flylens 85 HD 04 Wide. It's got the light air unit on it. So, hello. What the flip? So, come on. Oh, I cannot handle. It's got the light air unit on it, so it flies really nicely. It's got the wide angle lens, so it has good field of view. I feel like that is a money drone right there. If you want to spend a little more money and have a little heavier drone with a little better image quality, go for the 04 Pro. And then if you want something that's a little smaller and open prop, so it's going to be a little bit more acrobatic, but the props are going to, you're going to have a little bit harder time if you crash. You're going to break props. Then the Firefly 1.8. Those would all be good choices.
So he said tiny whoop. What if he wants to fly inside? Do you think there's a reasonable to go to the 75 there, or maybe even a 65 with the 04 Lite? How do you feel about that?
I don't like the 65 millimeter drones with the 04 Lite. Even I think that's it'll fly, but I just think it's not ideal. It's okay. I would probably take a 75 with the 04 Lite for indoors. And if you really want a smaller one, the 65 is acceptable. So, what's a good happy model?
Flyland 75. Right.
Yeah, there's a Flyland 75. Totally. For indoor flying, consider the Flyland 75 with the 04 Lite.
Oh, sorry, real quick. One note, you should just know when you're shopping for these drones, you need to be picking the PNP version of the drone.
Good point.
You don't have the SLRS, you have the DJI controller, and the PNP will give you connection to the DJI radio.
Yeah, that is correct. You need the PNP receiver. That is the DJI radio version. The Flyland 75 with the 04 Pro, skip it. Too heavy, in my humble opinion. People will disagree. I respect their disagreement. I would say skip it. Flyland 75 04 wide. It's just a little smaller than the 85. Going to have a little less power, be a little more appropriate for indoors. Then we've also got things like so I don't think Happy Model makes a 65 millimeter version. Do they make a 75 millimeter version? HDZero. Mobula 704. There we go. That's the one. Do you like my search results? Do you see how my search results aren't polluted with AI garbage and sponsored bullshit? I'm just getting actual content about what I want. That's because I switched to Kagi. Thank you to whoever donated me a 3-month Kagi subscription. I love it. I will be keeping it as a service. It's what search used to be and should have stayed forever. Mobula 704. There you go. Here's the... Now, the reason I like the Flywoo better is that the Flywoo has the wide angle adapter, and that significantly improves the field of view on the 04 Lite. I think that's just a winner. However, if you want to consider other options, the Mobula 704 is but honestly, I would get the Fly Lens. It's just better. I think it's just better. So, anyway. Is it safe and useful to make your own 2S batteries out of 1S batteries? If you're going to solder the cells together, then maybe. Although it's going to be a lot of time and labor, and they're not that fucking expensive. Pardon my language. Just buy them. But okay, if you've got a bunch of 1S, the thing is, if you're not soldering the cells together, if you're just using an adapter, you're adding a lot of resistance. So you've got a series adapter, plug. That adds a lot of resistance, and those little 1S batteries, the connectors, the PH connectors especially, they have a lot of resistance, and so it just kills your performance. You get a ton of sag. If you just have a ton of 1S batteries and you want to make 2S's out of them, definitely solder them up. Don't just use an adapter. But realistically, is it safe? I don't know. Are you going to screw it up? Maybe, right? It's as safe as you are good at making batteries. Is it useful? If you have a lot of time and no money and a lot of 1S cells that you want to turn into 2S cells, I guess you could do it. The 04 is video transmission, but does it have a built-in for remote as well? Yes, it does, Izoli. To go back to your question, it does. It receives to the RC3. I saw some people asking about my vest, my my hoodie, whatever. It is a shirt. It is a separate shirt and a vest / hoodie that pulls over. Oh, yeah. I mean, come on. It'd be better with a long sleeve shirt, I think, because what are you doing wearing short sleeves with a hood? Unless you're just incredibly stylish, which I am. Oh, that's not a good sign. Look, already we're starting to pull some threads. That's brand new. Literally, this is like the second time I've worn it. It got caught in the zipper, I think. Oh, hopefully that won't happen again. All right, well, so begins the downfall. Oh, when I was flying my Cinewhoop, the tiny metal wires got pulled out of the camera plug. Is there a way to reconnect the wire to the plug? Probably. What you would probably need, I'm going to guess that the camera is intact, but the wires got ripped out of the plug. What you need to do is identify the type of plug that it is, which sometimes I would have to contact the manufacturer to ask. Like, I have had to do that before. I've got a plug. I don't know what kind of plug it is. I broke it, and I literally reach out to the manufacturer and say, what kind of plug is this? Once you know the name of the plug, you can buy a spare and either, like, probably solder it on. So, like, hold on. Okay. Like, PH 2.0 connector kit. So, like, don't buy this. This is the individual connectors, and you have to crimp on the pins. This is a giant pain in the ass, and not worth the time, in my humble opinion. Like, again, if you just have a ton of time and you like doing manual labor, go for it. What you want is the pre-crimped connector sets. So what it'll do is it'll come with a bunch of wires that have the pins crimped on already. And then you just stick them in the plug. And then what you do is you solder them to your existing wires. You splice them and solder them to your existing wires. Now, your camera probably isn't a PH 2.0 connector. You need to find out the exact type of connector that it is. But you can almost certainly buy a pre-crimped connector kit. JSH connector kit, right? SH 1.0, SH 1.0. Oh, is it not JSH? Is it XSH? I think those are the balance connectors. Yeah, there you go. JST XH, that's it. JST XH, great. JST XH, there's balance connectors. In a kit, pre-crimped wires, ready to go. Pico blade connector kit. There it is, right? Just make sure you get the pitch correctly. The pitch is the spacing of the pins. You need the name of the connector, like JST Molex Pico blade, and you need the pitch, 1.25 millimeter. And once you have that information, you can probably buy a spare kit and just build a spare connector. If you are a masochist, you buy one of these kits with a crimping tool, and then you crimp the pins onto the wires. Don't do it. It's a giant pain in the ass. It's just not worth the time, in my humble opinion. However, if you did do that, you could reuse your existing wires and just crimp new pins onto your existing wires instead of soldering. But I personally, I don't like crimping. I've done it. I don't like it. I don't think it's worth the time. Let's see here. Is it okay to buy BLH32 ESCs if it is on the 32.7, 8, 9, 10 version? I wouldn't. Because you just don't know what you're getting. Like 32.9, I can't remember. Valenti, was 32.9 the one with the bug or 32.8?
I think it's 32.9.
I think it's 32.9 as well. Let's just assume that we're right, since 2 people in the room agree.
I
So
think 3210 is the experimental, and 32.9 is the one that was like the beta release that had that bug in it that did release, right? Something like that.
And the bug, what did the bug do, Blunty? Was it a little innocuous bug that just, sometimes you did a desync?
It was a rearm bug, right?
Oh, you're talking about the bug where when you crash and then disarm and then it won't spin, you rearm, but it won't spin the motors until you power cycle. So your drone is just like dead. Which was the version of BL Heli that had the bug where like once every 10,000 arms, it would just randomly go to full throttle, even though you didn't arm it. Like you would just plug in and all of a sudden the motors would just go, Wah! And like it almost never happened, but like it happened to 10 or 20 people in the whole world. Which was the version with that bug? I don't remember. Was it 32.8? I know that bug did exist.
I think that was 32.10. I think 32.8 is pretty solid. Like if you could find a 32.8, that version, my memory is 32.8 was very solid.
So my point is
32.9 was definitely had some issues.
Yeah. You don't know what you're going to get, is my point. And if you get the wrong version, you cannot flash it to a new version. You cannot. And if you get one of the experimental manufacturer only, there was a version of BL Heli that was used by manufacturers before they release for testing. And you can, not only can you not flash it, but you also can't configure it. And people are now shipping ESCs with that firmware on it because you know, they can. So like, I think BL Heli is too much of a crapshoot. You just don't know what you're going to get. If you knew for a fact that you were going to get 32.7, okay, that's good. I might take that. Like if somebody gave me an ESC with BL Heli on it, I probably wouldn't just throw it in the trash because the ESCs are too valuable these days. But I probably would rather buy something with BL Heli S or AM32. Yeah. Where's that question? That's weird. There's a question that popped. Where's that question? Never used BL32 as the configurator gone too. Why don't I see that in my OBS Ninja, my social stream dashboard? That's weird. Hey, look, it sucks that they made that decision. We don't know what pressure they were under to make that decision. When you own a company and your livelihood is on the line, I mean, if you think about it, they were making good money. They have to have been making good money because they were making money for every BL Heli 32 ESC sold. Not very much, but you sell a lot of ESCs. I think they were making good money. And they decided to end it and cut off that revenue stream. Now, we don't know why they did that. We don't exactly know. They said it had something to do with sanctions. So maybe they were concerned that the Norwegian government was going to come after them because their ESCs were being used on the battlefield, and they felt like they were going to get accused of violating European sanctions against, you know, supporting or contributing to the war in Ukraine. We don't know. They said it had something to do with something like that. And if they were like, hey, we're going to lose all, we're all going to get sued or fined by the government or go to prison. We have to shut our company down. We just don't know what pressure they were under. It sucks that they felt like they had to make that decision. I mean, frankly, of all of the companies where they unilaterally made a decision, like at least BL Heli 32, it was closed source. They owned the code. The people who made that decision had every right to throw that code in the trash if they wanted to. Unlike a project like Betaflight, which is open source, has had community contribution for years. And if any one person said, I'm shutting the project down, we would all have the right to say, hey, hang on, you don't own that. BL Heli 32, they owned it. It was theirs. And they felt like that's what they needed to do. And we don't know why they felt like it, but, you know, I'm never going to question somebody who looks at the potential for the government coming after them, which is my guess. My guess as to why they shut down, this is a pure guess, so take it as that, is either they got wind that they were going to be in trouble because a lot of BLH-32 ESCs were ending up on the battlefield in Ukraine. And maybe they felt like somebody was going to say, hey, we assume that you could be doing more to prevent this, and you're going to be in trouble if this doesn't stop. And they were like, we have no way of stopping this. We just have to shut down. That's one guess, a pure guess. The other guess is that they had some kind of a crisis of conscience. And they were like, hey, I'm not comfortable with a product that I use being used in this way. And they shut down. I can tell you that the BLH-32 devs are incredibly principled people in at least one way. Before BLH-32 was a thing, there was BLHeli-S and then BLHeli before that. And BLHeli and BLHeli-S were open source. And the BLHeli devs, when BLHeli-S was a thing, it got real popular. Manufacturers were using BLHeli-S, and the BLHeli devs were doing a ton of support. Manufacturers would release a BLHeli-S ESC. The ESC would have some problem, and the BLHeli-S devs would do a shitload of work on their firmware to fix the problem with the BLHeli hardware so that you could have an ESC that works. And they didn't go back to the manufacturers and say, F you, fix your ESC. I mean, I'm sure sometimes they did. But they worked tirelessly. And I would see people say, can we donate? And they would say no. They refused to accept donations from the public for the longest time. Because they were like, that's just not how we want to do it. And then when that got to be too much for them, they started BLH-32. They made the decision to close this code. And instead of being sleazy bastards and taking the open source project and then just, we rewrote the code. Sure we did. Taking an open source project, closing the source, which would violate the GPL. They completely rewrote the code in a totally different programming language, pure assembly. No one has ever disputed that they respected the GPL license of BLHeli-S, that BLH-32 was a from-scratch, brand-new project, brand-new code base, which was closed source, and they licensed it to the manufacturers, and they were like, hey, if you guys are going to make money off our firmware, and we're going to have to work to support your hardware, you're going to pay us money. So there's some of the most scrupulous people I've ever known in FPV. I don't know them personally, but just looking at the decisions they made. They refused money from the public for a long time. They correctly respected the GPL when they started a new project. So if they said, hey, we don't like our, and I'm not saying they did, I'm saying hypothetically, if they said, hey, we don't like our stuff being used to fight wars. I thought all FPV hobbyists hated the idea of drones being used as weapons. I'm generalizing. Right? Don't we all hate that? I thought we all hated that. So then you should be happy that BLHeli-32 shut down. Because potentially one reason they shut down was that they didn't like their ESCs being used to kill people, and they closed the whole company. So if you're like, oh, those guys are pussies, I hope you also support Rotor Riot making weapons and Red Cat making weapons. Right? Be idle. I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe you do support that. I'm just saying. It's, be ideologically consistent, I guess. Anyway, we don't have to like it. We can be annoyed. It's a complicated world, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a complicated world. It's a complicated world. I think about, I think his name was Charles Winchester, inventor of the Winchester repeating rifle. And I once went to the Winchester house in California, which is his old mansion that his widow used his fortune to continuously remodel for her whole life. And it's this wild, wild mansion. Like, she was afraid of ghosts, and she made all these, like, with these dead-end stairwells and this weird architecture to try to confuse the ghosts. I don't know. It's a retraction. But one of the things they tell you about is that Charles Winchester, like, she thought that she was haunted by the ghosts of all the people killed by Winchester repeating rifles. And it's like, you sit down one day and you're like, hey, rifles are a useful tool. I like rifles. Let's make a better rifle. So you just sit down in your lab and you do some nerd shit, or your shop, and you do some nerd shit and you make a better rifle. And then like one day you look up and you go, how am I morally responsible for all the things people have done with this tool? You sit down and you make a drone. You make a flight controller. You make an ESC. And you're not like necessarily setting out to do that. But the money's rolling in and you know where it's coming from. You know, how much do you care about that? I don't think there's an easy answer there. Yeah. You may be okay with some of the killing that's done and not others, and you don't really get to make that decision. Anyway. Moving on. Good little. I don't know if it was good. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for $5 from Wilco. Is 6S on a 3.5-inch freestyle? I would say that 3-inch to 3.5-inch is about the point where 6S might start making sense. 3-inch and below, like 3 inches right on the edge. 3 inches probably fine on 4S, but for most people, 3.5-inch, you could argue that 6S is starting to make sense. Part of the problem is that below 3 inches, the size of the cells is so small. Like you will get, the smaller a cell, the less amps it can provide. And at a certain point, the dimensions of the cell itself become restrictive, because ultimately, like the electrical ions have to move through the cell physically. They have to move through the electrolyte to the terminals. And if the cell is very, very small and very thin, it could just have bad performance. Like, I'm not a battery engineer, but suffice it to say. So once you get below about 3 inches, the cells themselves are so small. And if you go to a 6S, the cells are even smaller, right? 4S and 6S, same weight, same watt hours. The 6S has 2 more cells. It has 50% more cells, so the cells are going to be 1/3 smaller, right? So at a certain, I think one of the reasons 6S is bad on 3-inch and below is that if you had a 6S 500 milliamp hour, a 6S 300 milliamp hour, it's just going to be 6 tiny little whoop cells, and like you're going to have high voltage, but you're just going to have a lot of resistance in the connectors. The cells themselves are going to be terrible, and it would be better to be 4S 700 milliamp hours, because the bigger cells are just going to give you better performance. I think at 3.5 inches, you're at the point where if you felt like going 6S, it might make sense. And certainly by the time you get to 4-inch, 6S makes sense. But 3-inch and below, I'm not sure. It really depends the size of battery. Like 6S 850, sure. 6S 600, I might rather have a 4S 850-ish for the same weight. And Ciati points out 6S is rough on the smaller and lighter ESCs. They're smaller, they're physically smaller, they have smaller FETs, they have lower voltage rating. 6S much more likely to pop the ESCs. Thank you for Shot by Burgos for 10 reais, 10 Brazilian reais. Thank you for $5 from Bean Coro, who asks, I bought a 10-inch Mark IV V2 frame from AliExpress, and I built a dual-camera night drone. Caddx Infra V2 at the bottom, Axis Flying 256 thermal on a GoPro mount. Yikes. That's an impressive drone, I'll tell you what. Caddx Infra and thermal? Hell yeah. There you go. For tuning, should I start with Chris Rosser's AOS 7 preset or the UAV Tech 10-inch preset? I'd probably start with the UAV Tech 10-inch preset, since there's a fair difference between 7 and 10 inches. But presets are kind of always a crapshoot. Like, fly it very carefully the first time out and be very sensitive to the potential for hot motors or flyaway, right? Just do a little hover test. Like, literally just take off, hover for 30 seconds, like maybe do some very small tilts, nothing too abrupt, land, feel the motors. Are they smoking hot? No? Okay. Then take off, maybe do some throttle punches. Whoop, 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 whoop. Bzz, come back down. Very nice to be able to do this line of sight if you can fly line of sight. Just some little throttle punches and stuff. And again, if it goes, or if it goes, and tries to fly to the moon, again, then feel the motors. Are they hot? And sort of work your way up to full aggressive flights just to make sure that that preset isn't going to mess you up. Christex FPV, thank you for €2. That's a BLA 32 question. I think we answered that adequately. Skydar FPV, thank you for $10. I want motor sound back in my earbud. Money no object. What's the best Goggles VTX and overall setup to make it happen? It's going to be analog because nothing else transmits audio. Analog. Nobody else has a video transmitter that transmits audio. And then best analog goggles today, in my opinion, HDZero V2 goggles. Video transmitter. Should you get the Unify DP, which is, TBS quality? Should you get like a GEP RC, 2.5 watts? It's going to need to be something with a microphone connection. Ideally, it's a video transmitter with a built-in microphone. What has a built-in microphone? Rush, Tank... Solo, does it have a microphone? I don't want to have an external microphone. That's my thing. I do not want an external microphone. Microphone, built-in, high quality, AGC mic. Bingo. That's the one. Rush Tank Solo. What's the output power on it? Is it only 1 watt? What's the output? Max, it doesn't say. I think it's 1.6 watts. It says 1,000, but I think it'll go above 1,000. So it's not 2.5 watts. Rush Tank 2.5 watt. Is there a 2.5 watt version? Oh, yeah. Does it have a microphone? That's the one right there. Doesn't say that it has a microphone. Max Solo 5.8. Mic. Doesn't have a microphone. Damn. Audio in. So you'd have to connect your own microphone module. Well, it's your call. 1.6 watts with a built-in mic or 2.5 watts with an external mic. But that's probably where I would go. Yeah, Blinty.
Some people in chat are asking who are kind of new to this, I guess. Why wouldn't it just be wind noise?
Well, yes. You can hear the motors, though. You can hear the motors. Now, you may be thinking, well, I can already hear the motors using my human ears. That is true. However, sometimes you fly far enough away that you can't hear the motors anymore. Now, if you never do that, then this is pointless. But some people like to have an earbud in their ear that lets them hear the motors no matter where the drone is. And you do also hear the wind. Now, people are asking about what if I have digital goggles? Like Nick Hay here says, you could have separate audio and HD goggles. Yeah, but there two things. There isn't a audio transmission system that rivals a FPV video system. There are wireless audio systems, but they'll use like Bluetooth and they'll have a range of, a few hundred feet, right? So what if I get an analog VTX, put it on my drone next to my digital VTX, and use the analog VTX just to transmit audio to what? To a standalone receiver that you then wire to an earbud? You could do that, but the problem is having two transmitters on your drone, both of them running in 5.8 gigahertz, it's gonna stomp on your digital video transmitter. It's gonna be terrible.
They're also going to be 30 milliseconds off of each other.
That's true. There's going to be a delay.
Something.
Yeah. So I don't like it. The audio quality is pretty bad. It's like every time you see video break up in the audio signal, that's crackles and stuff. It's not great. But for people who are used to it, it's like years ago in my 20s, I had a girlfriend who slept with a fan in her bedroom, and I got used to sleeping with a fan on. And now I always sleep with a fan on. When I'm in a hotel and I don't have a fan, I get by, but it's annoying. And so it's like that. Once you're used to it, you're just used to it. And having, I think for some people, the audio noise in the earbud is like that. They're just used to it. Okay. Hello, Bino Bravo. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I have a Flylens 85. What Walksnail camera and VTX would you recommend I put into it? Probably the 1S Lite, the 1S VTX and camera. Try to save that weight. So probably something like this, the Avatar HD Mini 1S kit. Now, if you wanted to, you could go with the Avatar HD Pro kit and get a little more output power. I probably would substitute the camera. So I would buy just this VTX. So not the kit. Products, Caddx, FPV, no, Walksnail. Product type, Avatar VTX, Mini 1S and Lite, Avatar HD Mini VTX V3. I mean, that sounds like what we want, right? Mini VTX V3, yes. So this is going to be a little bit heavier than the Lite, but charge me $15. No, $5 for USB cable. Okay. But it's still going to be, the Flylens 85 will handle it no problem. And then buy the micro camera, buy the light camera, don't buy the full-size camera. Something like that. Let's see output power on this. 500 milliwatts. That's not that much more than the 1S VTX, but I think it's going to be more stable. The 1S VTX is not very durable. I would probably go with this over the 1S VTX because I think it's going to be more durable in a crash. And then get something like the Nano camera. Okay. Thank you for $10 from Johnny Boy. Do you have a way to do a custom config repo for Betaflight without GitHub? No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that you have to have a public GitHub repo to use the presets. I want to back up my drone configs and make it accessible without making a public repo. I have a local GitLab instance. Yeah,
if you're doing local GitLab, maybe you could do something with like the host file where you do a redirect to the address or something.
Yeah.
You know, so you make it think it's going out to GitHub, but it's not. It's going to local. But other than that, I don't think there's like a supported way, right? I
mean, it could be. So you're going to connect presets, preset sources, add new source. You're going to put a URL here, right?
So maybe now it has to be just a local.
It has to be it's looking for a GitHub file that is in the format that's expected. But theoretically, could you 127.0.0.1 / right my repo / presets or whatever, right? Could you do that? I don't see why not. But you would have to have GitHub running. You would have to have a fake GitHub website, right?
That's what GitLab is, I think.
Yeah, because it just goes to firmware-presets. It doesn't go to I should zoom in here. Hold on. It doesn't go to firmware-presets / index.html or /presets.json or something, right? So it's downloading this web page. What does this web page look like? So it's going to the whole repo, and then it's going somewhere else to it's going to presets / whatever. It's pulling the whole repo, right? But if you have a local instance of GitHub, if that's what you're telling me, that's what GitLabs is, Blunty.
Yeah, it's like a local version. I mean, because GitHub isn't a thing. Git is a thing, and GitHub runs Git. So GitLab is another way to run Git locally, from my understanding.
Yes. So but what I don't think you can do is file : / D slash, you know, my GitHub slash, like, could you? Could you? Hold on. I mean, let's find out.
It's probably looking for the formatting from the page, right? It's
Yeah,
probably
but could you put a file URL? Let me come up with a valid d:\OBS stream recordings. File : d/OBS stream recordings. I need to put this in quotes. I'm not exactly. OBS %20 stream %20 recordings. Make active. I mean, it took it. I don't know if it worked. Right? That's what you could try. If you have a local, like, it needs to, but the key is it needs to be this. You can't see it, sorry. It needs to be this. It can't just be presets. Or I don't know, maybe it can. But this is what the page is looking for. If you have a local web server where you could go to 127.0.0.1, or you could go to, you know, my local web server or my private web server, if you have a domain that you run, I'm confident it would work if you were running your own instance of GitHub or GitLabs. Anyway, this question will serve exactly 2 people in the whole world, but it's an intriguing question, and I'm glad we spent some time on it. If you get it working, come back and tell us. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Got to the mute button just in time. Oh, Elliot Bilardo, thank you for $2. Please check my question. JB, I'm desperate. All right, I'll show you my feet. No? What's the question from Elliot Bilardo? Elliot Bilardo says, I have black screen on my analog camera. I tried a different VTX and camera and flight controller, but it still won't work even when the cam is plugged directly to the VTX. All right, so if the camera is plugged directly to the VTX and you have black screen, the first thing I want to check is if you power down the VTX, do the goggles go to static? And what that confirms is that you are on the right channel. So let's say your display is just not working. Your display, your goggles are messed up, and they're just showing black screen. Well, at that point, whether your VTX is on or off, you're just going to see black screen. What we want is to be looking at static, which indicates that the goggles are working, and then we plug in the VTX and it goes to black screen. And that indicates that the goggles are on the right channel and the VTX is sending a signal. That black screen is what the goggles show when there is a VTX transmitting, but it's not transmitting anything. Just blank screen. So the first thing I would do is power down the VTX, the goggles should go to static. If they do not, then the goggles are on the wrong channel. You got to get the goggles, maybe they're in HDMI input and they need to be an analog input or something. Okay. So now we're going to assume that when the VTX is unplugged, you have static. When you plug the VTX in, you get black screen, confirming that the goggles are on the right channel, same channel as the VTX. Now the problem is that the VTX is not getting signal from the camera. So this is 2 things basically, 3 things maybe. The camera is not getting power. The camera is powered down. You tried a different VTX and camera. Well, if the camera is not getting power, swapping the camera wouldn't make it get power. Get a multimeter out. Probe with a multimeter. Measure voltage. Is the camera getting the voltage that it needs to get? What's the input voltage range of the camera? You're going to need to look that up. If the camera takes 5 to 12 volts and you're giving it 26 volts VBAT, you fried it. That's your problem. Find the voltage input range of the camera. Use a multimeter. Verify that the camera is getting the correct voltage and powering up. You may also feel the camera get warm, although sometimes if the camera is fried, it still gets warm and it's not working. Once you're confident that the camera is getting power, check the video line going from the camera to the VTX. Make sure that you're wiring to the video input on the VTX and not something else. Sometimes the labels on the VTX are misleading. That's the direction I would take the troubleshoot. Swapping VTX and camera and still getting black tells me the camera isn't connected correctly in both cases. I mean, there's definitely a consistent... Like, I think we can probably rule out bad hardware. Although, if he's feeding a 5-volt VTX VBAT, then the fact that he swapped the VTX and he fried the second one, you know, he could just be frying things because he's giving them the wrong voltage. We don't know.
Wait, how do we know the camera's good?
We don't. Like, my guess is that the VTX is fine and his goggles are receiving black screen because the VTX is powered up and the camera is not powered up or the camera is not connected to the VTX correctly. That's my guess.
Real quick, NVRST says if the camera is fried, you should at least see OSD if everything else is working. That's not always true.
That's often true, but yeah.
Yeah, that's often true, but the camera can give you like bad bad frames out of the camera, and then it'll mess up the OSD being able to draw onto those frames. Just so you know, it's not like 100% rule.
Like if there's no camera at all and you connect the flight controller to the VTX, you'll see OSD on top of a black screen. But if there's a messed up camera going into the flight controller, going into the VTX, so you know how like the flight controller has to link up with NTSC versus PAL sync pulses? If the camera is sending bad sync pulses, then you could get no OSD. It's true.
Not Jack mentions, you got to say it, lens cap.
Yeah, good point. Lens cap. Wow. Good. Not Jack with the save. Does the camera have a lens cap on? Wow. Yeah, I would have got there eventually. No, he would still see OSD, though. He would see OSD. He's not seeing OSD. Presumably, he would have mentioned if he was seeing OSD. Yeah. Anyway. He said he Mupshot says if he soldered to the cam pad, he may have misunderstood camera control. That's right. Some flight controllers have a cam pad, which is for controlling an analog camera, emulating a joystick. It is not for video. But he also wired direct to the VTX, which would bypass that. All right. Also, the fact that you swapped camera and VTX, it's easy to overlook this type of failure. And I want to say this as gently as possible. I can't tell you how often I've had someone bring me a problem, and I say, did you check this? And they say, yes, I checked it 3 times. And then I check it, and it's wrong. If you did it wrong the first time, you could have done it wrong the second and third time as well. So when you say I swapped the camera and the VTX, yes, but if you wired them up wrong, you probably wired the second one up wrong too. So the fact that you swapped it doesn't necessarily tell us anything. Wheels to the Sky, thank you for $5. I watched your soldering video. Could you outline some differences when working on a whoop? Tip size? Cool little holders. When working on a whoop, I would definitely use a smaller soldering tip, for sure. The pads are much smaller. I would also use a lower temperature because, again, the smaller pads heat up faster. RJ9502, thank you for $10. Thoughts on Goggle receiver locking to a channel after flash? Ref Discord troubleshooting forum, Sky020 stuck channel. Oof. So look, man, the Sky020 is an old enough goggle. I'm not sure how much help we're going to be able to be. It does have a built-in video receiver, right? Which means you flashed a firmware to it. And now, like, who knows what's going on? Like, if possible, can you flash it back? Yeah, he says flashed all legacy firmware options. You have to reach out to SkyZone. Like, I'm going to guess that you flashed the wrong firmware, but the fact that you flashed back to legacy firmware and it still didn't fix it, that's all I got, man. That's what I was going to tell you to do, and you did it. At this point, you have to get to SkyZone, and they have to tell you how to fix it.
Yeah, he says in the post they're not helping him, but I mean, that's really the only recourse, you know?
It is. It sucks. It sucks. Like, this is, unfortunately, this is the kind of support we get from Chinese companies sometimes, not always. Sometimes you just just can't get a response, or they're not as helpful as you'd like them to be. And the fallback then is to ask, like, on a Discord server or on a live stream like mine. But the problem is the Sky 020 is, like, I'm not sure I could help you if it was the Sky 04X, but the Sky 020 is, like, so old. It's not even going to be like that you're going to, like, randomly find some dude who had the same problem and he's going to tell you the fix. I'm just, like, keep emailing them politely, and then also go to their Facebook page and make a post. And again, be polite. If you go scorched earth, probably they're just going to be like, screw this guy. Okay? So, like, that's your call. If you think they deserve scorched earth, then it's not going to work, though. You're not going to get what you want, and they're not really going to care, probably. So again, just post on the Facebook page, describe the problem, ask for help, wait a week, do it again. I don't know what to tell you other than that. I wish I had a better answer, but I don't. Any chance soldering a new RX 5808 receiver could help? I don't think so. The RX 5808 is not what's getting flashed. It's their control board. If you could get a spare set of Sky 020s and pull the receiver module out of them and replace it, that might work. The whole module. I mean, that's silly. Why wouldn't you just buy new goggles at that point? Right? The Sky 020s, do they have an AV input? I'm sure they do. Could you buy another receiver module and use it through the goggles AV input? Again, that sucks that you have to do that. But, like, at least you would be able to keep using your goggles. Yeah, they have an AV input. So, like, if you're just desperate to keep using your goggles, get a standalone receiver module, like the SkyZone Sky SteadyView X is just a SteadyView module in a box. Wire it to the AV input, and then just use the AV input and don't use the channel change. I mean, that sucks. But it would let you keep using your goggles. How much are these goggles these days? $289. That's a bummer, man. Never update firmware. Never update, especially on old equipment. On old equipment, just leave it alone. Okay. Thank you for your donation, Michael Alexander. Thank you for a $2 donation. Michael Alexander says, I enjoy my entry to digital with the 04 Lite. Works great for me. I'm in the middle of a few builds, and I want to use my 04 Lights, but I can't find a good mounting location on a 5-inch frame. What do you mean? Just double-sided tape, put it behind the camera. Or buy a longer MIPI cable. You can buy a longer MIPI cable, put it in the back. I don't think I would put it on top of the flight control stack. I don't think that's a good idea. Probably a longer MIPI cable is the way to go. 04 Lite. Oh, crap. I just messed up the chat. I'm sorry, Blenty. Come on. There we go. Rotorriot.com. Sure. We'll go to good old friend Rotorriot. 04 coaxial MIPI cable. You can get a longer MIPI cable for $10. That's what you should buy. Just buy a longer MIPI cable, put it wherever you want. $10. No brainer. Buy several. Right? Stock up. Banks, here we are back again with Banks. Thank you for $10. Banks is building an NDAA VTOL wing. For those who don't know, NDAA stands for National Defense Authorization Act. It is the bill that that Congress passes every year to make sure that our military can continue to function. It's the one thing that they seem to be able to do without fail. Make sure the military keeps functioning. The National Defense Authorization Act. And at one point, several years ago, they said, hey, if you're going to sell stuff to the military and the federal government, it can't come from China. That's a dramatic oversimplification, but it'll do for the sake of this conversation. So when somebody says they're building an NDAA product, what they mean is they want stuff that's made in friendly countries, not hostile countries. China, Iran, Russia, no. Not sure people were doing a lot of manufacturing in Iran, but not allowed. Thailand, Vietnam, Croatia. Oh, USA? Whoa, NDAA. So when you hear NDAA, it probably means this isn't, like, hobbyists don't give a shit about NDAA. It probably means this is someone trying to sell their product to the government, the military, whatever. Or some federal, probably some federal customer. Trying to build an NDAA wing with ArduPilot, Q ground control using the Tango 2. Can I fly manually with the Tango 2 and the laptop by switching modes? Yes. Yes, you can. Do I have to run Mavlink or can that be run entirely with Crossfire? So what I would recommend in your situation is the Tango 2 runs Crossfire. The RC Link is Crossfire. The laptop has a separate radio, like a SICK radio is a common one. 900 megahertz or 400 megahertz SICK radio, or something like that, a separate telemetry radio running Mavlink. And then you can go back and forth between manual control and laptop control. I would not run Mavlink over Crossfire. Crossfire technically does support the ability to do Mavlink over Crossfire, but the packet rate is only 50 hertz, and it's so slow that the performance is terrible. Don't do it.
He asked if he needs both then. Okay.
You do not need both. Like, you could just fly it manually with the Tango. Now, most people running ArduPilot don't want to do that. Most people running ArduPilot want Q ground control or mission planner so they can do all that shit.
What he's saying is there's no way to do both of those options, the Tango 2 and a laptop, running only Crossfire, right?
There is, yes. You could run Mavlink over Crossfire. So what Crossfire will do is they will carry the Mavlink basically, the laptop connects to the Tango 2 via Wi-Fi. Laptop connects to the Tango 2. Tango 2 forwards the Mavlink packets over the Crossfire control link. But again, the performance is awful because the packet rate is only 50 hertz. And I know what you're saying, but Joshua, Crossfire also does 150 hertz. Yes, it does. Out to about 300 or 400 feet. 300 or 400 meters, rather. And then it switches to 50 hertz. And everyone who's doing ArduPilot and Q ground control is going further than 300 or 400 meters. So the problem is that when you're doing ArduPilot Mavlink stuff, you're using Crossfire as your control link, you're going to be at 50 hertz very soon because you're going to be beyond the range that 150 hertz can do. That's just the limitation of Crossfire. So if you're doing Crossfire, Mavlink over Crossfire, I'm going to assume that eventually you'll be on 50 hertz. And at that point, the Mavlink performance is just dog shit because it's too slow. Express LRS is more optimized than Crossfire because Express LRS was made to be lean and efficient, whereas Crossfire, when they first started, they were like, we have all this data. Why not use it? 50 hertz is great. That's the 150 hertz low latency. Oh, fantastic. And Express LRS had the benefit of hindsight to try to develop a lower latency, leaner control link. So Express LRS can get fantastic range at 100 or 200 hertz. So Mavlink over Express LRS actually works okay. 200 hertz is, you could get 10 or 20 kilometers off of Express LRS 200 hertz and get okay Mavlink performance. So What I would suggest, though, is you either use Express LRS radios with Mavlink over Express LRS as your control link on your data link, or you use a dedicated telemetry radio like those SICK radios that so many people use. I don't know if the SICK radios are Mavlink. I mean, are NDAA. Teo 920, thank you for $5. I replaced an arm on a 7-inch and forgot to tighten the screws and got some smoke. Replace one motor or all? Only replace the smoked motor. Oh, wait. The motor's smoked, but it still flies fine? Does it visibly smoked? Oh, he's got pictures. I would probably replace that motor. This one here, even though maybe theoretically the enamel didn't burn all the way through, I don't like it. I would replace that. I've had situations in my life where I saw the tiniest bit of smoke come out of a motor. And when I looked at the motor, I could not see any visible damage. And the motor flew fine, and I kept flying the motor. But if I had a motor that looked like this, I would replace it. But like the other motors, that one's fine. That one's fine. That one's fine. I mean, I see a tiny bit of browning. Maybe it's just the shadow. This is the only one I would for sure replace. Or, you know what? If you like to live on the edge, if it flies fine, just keep flying it. But don't fly it over people, because it could just drop out of the air at any moment. And you'll be like, I didn't know what happened. What analog goggle? Thank you for 10 Polish zloty from David. What analog goggle, less than 415 USD with AVN, do you recommend in the EU? Skyzone Sky 040. Price, I'm pretty sure it's less than $415. Yeah, Skyzone Sky 040, $339. Has an AVN and is available in the EU. That's the one. Just like the options are relatively slim these days. That's just the one. If you flash the receiver and brick it, you won't get any support. Is what I'm learning today. Thank you for $10 from 3D Chris. Thank you, Mr. Bardwell, for all you do to support this hobby. You are a national treasure. Oh, I wouldn't say that. I would let you say it. You've been quick to respond to me when I had questions in the past, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate the kind words. I was waiting for the gotcha. Thank you for your donation from LRFPV. Let's try to find that question. Nope, just a donation. Thank you. Well, great. Appreciate the donation. Let's see here. What's the purpose behind 6S on a small quad, though? There's no benefit for most flying styles. If you need to go fast, you go up to a 5-inch. The advantage of higher voltage, there's some debate about the advantage of higher voltage. One of the main advantages is reduced current flow. On large drones, if you need to pull, at a certain point, the sheer number of watts you need to pull as you get up to a 10-inch, a 13-inch, an 18-inch drone, the sheer number of watts you need to pull if you were at 6S voltage would be a huge amount of amps, and that results in a lot of heat buildup in the wires, in the ESC, and in the motors. So with larger drones pulling a lot of watts, the higher voltage cuts double the voltage, they cut the amps in half, and cutting the amps in half, I believe heat buildup is not even linear. Heat dissipated in a resistor formula. I believe it's the square or the cube. I can always have to look this formula up. P equals IV. Oh no, it's P equals IV. Okay, so it's linear. P equals V squared over R. Power as a function of voltage or current, P equals I squared over R. Power delivered to a resistor is voltage across it times current through it. That's linear. The power as a function of voltage, P equals I squared. P equals IV and P equals I squared R. Well, those are obviously not measuring the same thing. Oh, no, IV versus I squared R. I see. One is with respect to resistance and one is with respect to voltage. Okay. So P equals IV, which means that if you... Okay, so it's linear. The heat dissipated is linear. Never mind. That's still an advantage, but not as much of an advantage as I thought. I always remember the P equals I squared R. No, it's P equals I squared R because the resistance of the wire is constant. Voltage doesn't come into it. Voltage drop across the resistor. No. It's P equals I squared R. That's the formula that's relevant. And because it's I squared over R, or I squared times R, by cutting the current in half, you reduce the heat dissipation by more than half. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. Very, very, very badly. So, anyway, the main reason to go to higher voltage is that you reduce the heat buildup in the wires, and that doesn't matter on a little 5-inch drone. It especially doesn't matter on a 3-inch. You don't have enough current to really be very worried about heat dissipation or voltage drop. So the other thing you can do is you can get to higher RPMs with lower kV motors. But again, we get plenty of RPM I could build a 20,000 kV motor off a 1S battery for a 65 millimeter quad. I don't think there is a real reason to go 6S below about 3-inch. I think it's just people think more is better, and so they want a bigger battery. I always have to look up P equals I squared R to remember the heat dissipated by a resistor. Jacob Fedler, I assume you're asking about BL Heli. Talking about BL Heli and selling. I want to flag this. I don't think BL Heli 32 devs ever sold directly to the military. They sold to drone manufacturers like iFlight, GepRC, whoever. I'm just naming names. I'm not pointing fingers. The BL Heli 32 devs sold 10,000. Let's say you're a BL Heli 32 dev. iFlight buys 50,000 ESC licenses. Okay, great. You don't know where those drones went. Some of those drones went to hobbyists. Some of them went to the military. Some of them went to the military through third parties that are explicitly designed to hide the fact that the drones are going to the military. Okay? So the relationship is not BL Heli 32 sells ESCs to the military and then is like surprised Pikachu face when they get in trouble. No. The relationship is BL Heli 32 doesn't make or sell ESCs at all. They make firmware that they license to manufacturers. Manufacturer makes ESCs. Manufacturer pays BL Heli 32 for the license. Manufacturer does something with ESCs. BL Heli 32 devs don't know what manufacturer does. And most of these manufacturers are also not selling direct to the military because that would be illegal in their country or prohibited. These manufacturers are selling drones, and the drones are going out into the world through some plausibly deniable third party and are somehow, I have no idea how this happened, making their way onto the battlefield in Ukraine. Or actually, all that information is outdated because these days, the impression that I have is Ukraine is manufacturing their own drones, and the days when Ukraine was buying drones from hobby companies and repurposing them are I think, long gone. But I've seen photos that were, no, I haven't authenticated these photos. I've seen photos that are purported to have been from Ukraine of stacks of iFlight drones in a room, stacks of GepRC drones, stacks of HDLRC drones. And all HDLRs, I mean, I don't know what HDLRC or iFlight or GepRC know or don't know. And it would be presumptuous of me to presume. Okay, that's just a tautological statement. But like, presumably there was some plausible deniability where they get an order for 500 drones. And that order doesn't say on the invoice, you know, Security Forces of Ukraine or, you know, Russian Army. It just says such and such a company wants 500 drones. F you. Do you want the money or don't you? And they sell it. And as long as there's not any obvious sign that that company is diverting them to the military, they say like, hey, somebody wants to buy 500 drones. What do I care? And they sell 500 drones. Right? Maybe they're for, I don't know what they're for. So the BLHeli devs, they had to have bought thousands, and that wasn't a red flag to the devs. No, it's not a red flag. The BLHeli devs probably sold ESC licenses in blocks of thousands or tens of thousands to companies like iFlight, GepRC, and other manufacturers, and they would just buy a block of thousands, and they would put them on their ESCs, and they don't know where they're going. They have no control over that. Okay. Just want to give a little perspective there. What do you got here, Sunshine? New Year's Eve drone show. I did see some parts of it. The Christ the Redeemer statue coming up out of the water, right? Can we get this? What is it? I'm being warned to definitely mute this. Okay, I'm clicking on it. Okay, it's muted. Wait, am I going to get 53 subscribers from Vin Busquet? I'm hoping that Vin Busquet does not copy strike me. I'm guessing he doesn't have copyright, monitoring on his channel. Thank you, Vin Busquet, for your video of the drone show. Are these the drones over here? They're just using drones to turn into a display in the sky. Shut up. Like, really? Is that what we've decided to do with our technology? Got some capoeira going on there. We're just like making pixels in the sky so we can have TV in the sky. Like, for real? For real? Oh my God. Hey, Vin Biscuit. Get back on the. We're not watching 9 minutes of this. We got the Sugarloaf Mountain, Pão de Açúcar with a cable car. Bow. What else? Come on. More drones. Fireworks. Oh, here we go. Look at that. Look at that. What a great illusion. Look how precise those are. That's wild. That's all. Are they lifting off the ground, or are they just hovering close to the ground and flying in? Like, what exactly is happening? No, go back to the... Oh. Look at that. Look how they've created the shadows and the texture. That's crazy. Why would you just keep the camera? Okay, Vin Biscuit. I'm losing my, I'm going to get copy struck by Vin Biscuit. That is really something. Oh my gosh. Now it's going to start like, oh, it's breaking apart. What the fuck? Oh, it turned into fireworks. That's freaking wild, man. That's wild. That's really something. Very cool. Is HDZero penetration for most things and fun flying enough, or can you barely fly? Somewhere in the middle. I would say that it is definitely not you can barely fly. Absolutely not. I would not say that. Is it enough? Well, some people feel that it is. I am usually, when I fly HDZero for anything other than like close range racing or maybe whoops where they all have terrible penetration because they all have weak video transmitters. When I fly HDZero freestyle in like a park or especially a bando indoor environment, I find that the penetration of HDZero lags behind a strong analog video transmitter or Walksnail or DJI. So it's enough, but it's not as much as it could. You might want it to be if you have flown other things. That's what I would say. Have I tried line of sight planes yet? I started on line of sight planes. I find them kind of boring to fly. Because, like, you just, okay, I'm flying around in the sky. I can't go behind anything because I'll crash because I can't see it. I can't go, so basically, like, they have their own appeal. You can do certain types of aerobatics that are kind of cool. But generally, I find line of sight planes to be, like, not that, and I'm much worse at them than I used to be. I used to be minimally competent with line of sight planes, and now I'm so out of practice, although I can like fly a plane in a pattern and land it without crashing. I can still do that. I wouldn't like try to line of sight dogfight a plane, which I know people do. The other thing is that my FPV mindset and attitude is not very compatible with a traditional flight field. If I flew it, I'm like just going to be an asshole. But when I go to a traditional flight field, like somebody's like, hey, we're going to fly drones. So we go to this flight field. Like consistently, I accidentally screw up and I like fly the wrong way in the pattern. Like we'll get there and nobody's there and we'll start flying around and just using the field as a field. And then a couple fixed wing guys will set up down at the end of the field and they'll start flying. And very shortly I'm getting yelled at because I flew the wrong way in the pattern, or I was like just hovering somewhere doing some checks and they're like, you can't hover over the runway. And like, I know they're right. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else. If I were flying a plane, I probably would be more likely to, fit in, but I wasn't flying a plane. So I don't like getting yelled at. And it seems like whenever I'm at a traditional flying field, I get yelled at. And that's a me problem. I'm the asshole. But I'm just going to remove myself from the situation. Well, why don't you just adjust your behavior and become a better person? Well, I'm not a better person. So tough. I'm a rebel. You can't make me fly one way in the pattern. I'm a rebel. I won't do that. I'm going to leave. Anyway. I've flown with plane people and gotten along with them. But they're the plane people who are out at the park, not the plane people who are at the AMA field. Not to overgeneralize, but to generalize a little bit. GX12, total wipe, no backup. Can it be saved? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a video. How to factory reset your HDZero radio. This is the video you want. All you have to do is download the SD card contents from the Radio Master website and put them back on the SD card. Bing, bang, bong. You're good to go. How to factory reset your HDZero radio. That's the video that shows you how to do it. Or you can just do what I said. Got 30 Polish zloty from Nifotograph, who says, my drone started disarming mid-flight after it was in the snow last weekend. Oh, it was dried and alcohol clean, but now it has an issue. So here's what I want to know is it literally disarming? Like, does it think you flipped the disarm switch? Do you see the post-flight statistics, right? Because what we want to figure out is whether the drone thinks you disarmed or whether the drone is disarming itself because it has some kind of a problem, and those are two separate things to troubleshoot. One is like a receiver problem. One is a flight controller problem. If you see the post-flight statistics, it means that the flight controller thinks the receiver disarmed because it thinks you flipped the switch. Now, I don't know how you troubleshoot that. I would be inclined to think that was more a hand controller problem. Like your switch is broken on your hand controller. Because, like, the receiver being broken is going to make the flight controller fail safe, but it's not going to make it think you disarmed. Okay? He says he does see the post-flight statistics. Hey, guys, when you fail safe, do you see post-flight statistics? Or does that confirm that he flipped the switch? It's been so long since I fail safe. Do you or don't you see the post-flight statistics when you fail safe? I feel like maybe you do. Crap. It's not as much of it. You do not. Jimmy the Cow says you don't. Dwayne Miller says you don't. I thought you didn't, but now I'm like second guessing myself. Okay, the chat is saying you don't see post-flight statistics on failsafe. Assuming that's true, yeah, off-axis says it says failsafe. That's all. Okay. So if you're seeing post-flight statistics, it means that the flight controller thinks you flipped the disarm switch. A bad receiver isn't going to do that. It's going to make like the signal go away, but it's not going to turn a 1 into a 0, right? I think your controller has a problem. Is it happening to multiple drones? Check if it's happening to multiple drones. I feel like that's more likely to be your controller than the drone. Like maybe you've had another problem pop up that is coincidentally unrelated to landing in the snow. Is it possible to get HDMI output from the Goggles N3? Yes, you need a Cosmo streamer. Cosmo Streamer. Cosmo streamer. Oh, if only there was a way I could just not have to spell it out, but just show you on screen. I have a tutorial. Ha! Like I do for many things. DJI Goggles, HDMI out, and more. Cosmo streamer. Now, I'm doing this with the goggles too. Bardwell, you're better than this. What are you doing? Okay. I guess I'm not better than that. That's a pretty compelling thumbnail. I mean, I gotta admit, that's a pretty compelling thumbnail. That's a good thumbnail. I'm not even gonna apologize. DJI Goggles, HDMI out, and more. Cosmo streamer. That's the video you want. It'll show you how to get set up with a Cosmo streamer. And then everybody in the comments was like, you could just use the DJI Fly app. And I had to pin a comment complaining about that. All right, guys, we are coming to the end of the live stream. We have a ton of questions that didn't get answered. How many questions didn't get answered? Well, it looks like 24 questions. Siadi's going to start streaming, though, and we're going to respect Siadi's time. Which bind and flies are actually good? The ones that paid Siadi to say they're good. You know what you did, Siadi. You shill. All right. Siadi says, go on as long as you want. I was going to try to lightning round these questions. I don't know if I want. Well, maybe I'll lightning round a few of them. Are AGO2 gimbals more durable on the TX15? No, I don't know why your gimbal took a shit. The GX12 gimbals are fine. Why did you drop it? Did you break it? I don't think they're particularly undurable. I think you just got unlucky. But if you want to upgrade, sure, spend your money and upgrade. The AGO 2 must be more durable, right? Yeah, sure. Which goggles should I buy? The Gaber Kavik. For analog, HDZero, I mean, Money No Object, HDZero V2. Money and Object, Skyzone Sky 040 is the short answer. Lightning round. Remember, lightning round. This question is not eligible for lightning round. It takes too long to answer. Sorry. Is your 2023 first build playlist still relevant? Yeah. Even the kit's still relevant. We should really update the kit because now it's 2026. It's been 2.5 years. But that we should probably do an update on that. But it's still relevant. It's fine. Not that much has changed since 2023 in terms of how to build a drone. Gotta say. Not that much has changed. Chance on doing without using GitHub. We talked about that. My Skyzone 040 video quality is pretty bad. Any tips? Okay, I had a segment at the beginning of the stream about how to get good analog video. Watch that segment back at the beginning of the stream. Should I invest in DJI at this point or stay away and do HDZero for digital? This is a flawed question. This is a flawed question. That's like asking, should I buy a Ford F-150 as a truck or should I buy a Miata instead? Like, those are not in the... Yes, DJI and HDZero are both digital FPV systems, but the things that they are good at are so different that I don't think you understand the question if you're comparing them to each other. If you said, should I buy a Ford F-150 or a Dodge Ram pickup? I'd be like, okay, this guy understands the question. But if you asking me, should I buy a Ford F-150 or a Miata? I don't think you understand the question. HDZero, excellent for low latency, lightweight, good for racing, good for tiny whoops, good for analog. If the goggles are good for analog. DJI 040, great image quality, poor latency, acceptable but higher latency, great range of penetration. They are HDZero, American manufacturing. Well, not American. NDAA manufacturing, American company. Carl is an American citizen. Ryan Quellet, based here in America. They manufacture in Thailand, so they don't manufacture in America. But like Ryan Quellet, very active with the FPV community, very responsive, very tied in. You will get a hold of him. DJI, good freaking luck, right? So like, there's all these differences between them. But like, if you're like, should I get DJI? Or maybe HDZero. HDZero is not a replacement for DJI. If you said, should I get DJI or should I get Walksnail? Walksnail's like a B+ replacement for DJI. HDZero is, I'm going a completely other direction. Should I get steak or should I get pork chops? Okay. Should I get steak or should I get broccoli? That's the question you asked me. They're completely different. It depends on your values. So understand the differences before you pick one. Bought an Air 75. Should I buy an Air 65 in the future? No, just fly the 75. 65 not going to be that different. It'll be a little different, but like, nah, 75 can fly indoors. It's not the best indoors, but since you already own it, just stick with it. That's what I would say. Do you still recommend the JB Phoenix 2 run cam for analog cams? Yeah, I love it. I still think it's a great camera. I should probably contact them because I haven't gotten a check from them in a long time. They probably owe me a little bit of money. Whatever. All right. Oh, we got a super chat. Hope you had a good day. Natter FPV, thank you. That's going to be it. We're not going to get through all the questions, even in the lightning round. Go ahead and email me if you have a question, or try me again tomorrow, 8 p.m. on the Monday night stream. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.